What if I told you that if you owned 110 shares of Tesla stock today, over the course of the next 10 years, you could potentially turn that into over $1 million? Yeah, that's right. Elon Musk thinks Tesla stock could reach over $9,000 at some point in the future, bringing Tesla's net profit on a yearly basis to $1 trillion+. I didn't say that, Elon said that. So we're going to get into that. We're going to break down some numbers here. This math is going to shock you. Elon Musk says on page 442 of the new book that just came out, his biography, it says, quote, during a conversation that month about the milestones his companies had reached, he explained to me why he thought Tesla was on a trajectory to be the most valuable company in the world, one that made $1 trillion in profits every year. Yet there were no notes of celebration or even satisfaction in his voice. I guess I've always wanted to push my chips back on the table or play the next level of the game, he said. I'm not good at sitting back. I am now going to read you the rest of that page because, it kind of breaks down his acquisition of Twitter. This is not necessarily related to what we're going to get into next and some of the numbers we're going to crunch, but I think it's quite interesting. So it says, usually at such moments of unnerving success, Musk manufactures a drama. He launches a surge, scrambles the jets, announces an unrealistic and unnecessary deadline. Autonomy Day, Starship stacking, solar roof installations, car production. Hell, he yanks the alarm chain and forces a fire drill. Quote, normally he would go into one of his companies and find something to turn into a crisis, Kimball says. But this time, Musk didn't do that. Instead, without fully thinking it through, he decided to buy Twitter. And good thing he did, because Twitter was going down the poop chute before Elon bought it. Now let's break down the numbers behind $1 trillion in profits, how that could turn into a Tesla share price of over $9,000, and how if you currently own 110 shares of Tesla, that could turn into over $1 million. Keep in mind, there's no timeline to this. It could be 5 years, it could be 10, it could be 15, it could be 20, it could be 30. Who knows? But I think there's the obvious way we get there, and that is Robo taxi, in which we're even going to break down those numbers. And this will shock you. Now, before we talk about $1 trillion of profits, I think you need to put it into a little bit of context. Apple, the most valuable company in the world, with a market cap around $3 trillion, brought in last year about $100 billion of bottom line net profits. So this $1 trillion of bottom line profits for any given year, that would be 10 times the amount of profits that Apple brought in last year in its best year ever. So if Tesla brought in $1 trillion of profits for any given year, and you slap Tesla with a 30 times PE, which is less than half of the PE ratio of Tesla stock today, which sits in the 70 range, low 60s for next year, well, that would be a market cap of $30 trillion. If you divide $30 trillion by today's market cap of $860 billion, that would be a 35x from today's prices of $273 per share. And lo and behold, if we do times 35, which represents 35x your money, times $273, Tesla's current share price, that would be a Tesla share price at some point in the future of $9,555. Now, this would be if Tesla did not dilute shareholders in the course of history, or I guess the future, which I don't expect we will get dilution. Tesla is self-financed, but that's always a possibility that you would at least want to kind of calculate to some degree. Expect some dilution if you invest in companies on the markets, unless they are value companies and they're not investing. But for a Tesla, you should expect some form of dilution in the next 10 to 20 years. At some point, it's going to make sense for Tesla to raise capital. But still, you're looking at a share price of $9,000 plus if Tesla stock were to 35x at some point in the future. So if you own 109.89 shares of Tesla, well, if you times this by the expected value that Tesla shares could be, if Tesla did actually bring in $1 trillion of net profits, which is 9,555. Well, that would be $1,050. That would be a 35x to where Tesla stock is today. Now, I started digging into this pretty deep and running some different scenarios about the robotaxi and how much money this could actually bring in to net profits. And I think this is the part that you can tweak a lot and, to really whatever you think is going to happen in the future. It's hard to tell, how pricing will be for the robotaxi or how many times it will be used. But this is kind of what I came up with. And I dived into this quite a bit. And really, I try to be very reasonable with my expectations, quite conservative at that. So I just did an analysis on the United States. Now, I get it. Robotaxi is going to be in Europe. It's going to be in China. Odds are it's going to be everywhere eventually, especially once the data continues to show the safetiness of robotaxis. Just there will be no sense to have a bunch of drivers out there when you have a robotaxi alternative, or at least a car that could, drive itself to some degree or another. So ultimately, tweak these numbers how you want. It's pretty easy to do so, but you still come to a really good conclusion. Now, America today has 331 million citizens. Now, I said on average, what if 331 million citizens took robotaxi rides 10 times a year? Now, obviously, some are not going to take any, and some are going to take 200 plus. If you commute to work every day, well, you're going to take 200 plus. So this is an average of all of them. And that would be 3,310,000,000 rides a year, essentially. Then I went to find out the average taxi fare today, and that is $36.17. And this was data from 2019. So I'm sure the number today is a lot higher than that, given all the inflation we have seen. Personally, I don't take taxis that often. I couldn't tell you how much it would cost me to drive or ride from A to B. I don't know. Provide that down below in the comment section if you guys take taxis often. Let me know how much it cost today to get a taxi ride. So what I did for my estimate is I took $20 as the average for a taxi ride at some point in the future. And I think that's pretty realistic. Maybe a little bit too conservative, just given where obviously, again, the pricing is of taxi rides today. It might be higher than that, but usually over time, innovation brings down the cost of things. So I didn't want to go too high. So I think $20 is probably a little too conservative. So tweak these numbers again, however you guys would like. But if there would be essentially 3,300,000,000 taxi rides a year at some point in the future, and you times that by 20, that would be $66 billion of potential, I guess, revenue being brought in. Now, divide that by 2, because let's assume that $20 is split 50-50. It's split between the owner of the robotaxi and Tesla. Probably a 50-50 split here. Then you come down to 33 billion. And then let's say, because it's a software business, you probably have around 90% margins. So you times this number by 0.90, and you come out to 29,700,000,000 in what would be net profits. And this would be just for America on very conservative numbers. You would be doing 30% of Apple's total revenue that they did last year in robo-taxis for the US. You could probably double or triple this number if you wanted to be realistic here. I'm just throwing stuff around. This could be 100+ billion, and it more than likely would be. But this is not to mention the energy business, which could eventually account for 50+% of Tesla's revenue. This is not accounting for robotics in the future or anything else that Tesla wants to do as a brand. Tesla is much more than an auto company, AI company. It's much more than any of that. A car company for sure. Tesla's a brand. Tesla can sell whatever they want, and people will buy it. At least that's what I expect Tesla to evolve into. Comparable to an Apple. Apple can sell whatever they want. People just buy it because it's Apple. It's brand loyalty. It's a recognizable brand that everyone knows. That's what Tesla will become. So what do we know? I mean, there could be products we haven't even thought about that come to markets. But that's a definitive that we can sit here and say, hey, that's a lot. Compare it to Apple today. And $1 trillion doesn't sound too unreasonable. Think about the whole globe. We could have taken 7 billion people. I believe it's more than 7 billion people now that live in the world. We could have took 30% of those people, accounting for the developed world, which would give you roughly 2 billion, a little bit over 2 billion, and run the numbers that way. And you're going to come to an even larger number. A matter of fact, let's actually go ahead and do that. So the world population today is 7.888 billion as of 2021. Divide that by 30 or times it by 0.3. That equals out to 2.36 billion. And then let's go ahead and say, hey, on average, you probably get 10 taxi rides a year. That is 23.66 billion rides a year, essentially. Okay, times that by 20, representing $20. Divide that by 2, which would be Tesla's share. You're at 236 billion. Times that by 0.90, representing 90% margins. And you're at $213 billion of net profit. And that's just the robotaxi business alone on very conservative numbers. We can do this, again, being a little bit less conservative. Let's be a little bit more realistic. Because obviously with inflation the way it is, I mean your total dollars 5-10 years from now, it might cost $100 for a taxi ride. We're not going to go that crazy with it. But still, same thing here. The total world population, 30% of that, which again is, I should actually do the full numbers here, so I don't mess things up. Times 0.30, again 2.336. Take that. We'll still keep the 10 as the denominator, as each person in the world does an average of 10 robo-taxi drives a year, which this number could be a lot higher, but we'll just keep that. Again, 23.66 billion. Go ahead and times this by, let's call it $50. I think that's a little bit more conservative, especially if you're looking out 5 to 10 years from now. That's almost 1.2 trillion. Huh. Okay, divide that by 2. 591 billion. Times that by 0.90. That's 532 billion in net profits to Tesla, potentially. Holy smokes. It becomes a little bit more realistic to get to $1 trillion in net profits for any given year. Now, just to spin your guys' brains a little bit more, keep in mind, this whole calculation we've done throughout this video was based on 30% of the world being developed at some point in the future and having access to robotaxi services. 10, 15, 20 years from now. 30%, that's it. Today's population of the world that lives in developed countries that would have access to some of these robotaxi-like services is 17%. But get this, 50% of the world population by 2050 will be developed. The world's population is expected to peak at 10.4 billion in 2086. Now, this is obviously like, 62 years from now, right? So that would be over 5 billion people in a developed world. But wait, by 2030, China, Mexico, Thailand, and Turkey will join the developed countries by 2030. Today, there's 1.3 billion people that live in a developed world. China's population is almost 1.3 billion alone. So this number is going to jump to over 30% of the world's population being developed in just the next couple of years. So you could even push that number higher to maybe 40% and still be pretty accurate. And that would make the number look a whole lot bigger. Now, ultimately, what do I think about all of this? Eventually, I do think Tesla's stock could reach $9,000 plus per share. And really what would happen is you'd get splits just over and over and over again, right? Once Tesla stock gets back probably to about $500 per share, you're probably going to get another split. So the number could look a lot lower, but your ownership in the company will be equivalent to, 35 to 50x at some point down the line. That could be 10 years. That could be 20, that could be 30 years. It depends a lot on that PE ratio. That 30x ratio is important because if Tesla brings in $500 billion of net profits, but it doesn't have a 30 times PE, it has a 60 times PE, which what is basically what we're at today, give or take, then Tesla stock would be at a $30 trillion market cap. So is that the route you want to take? I don't know. That's a plausible route. So you could tweak the numbers a lot, but I think you come to the same conclusion. I agree with Elon. I think you can get $1 trillion of net profits. Do I think it's going to be 5 years from now? No. Do I think 10 years from now? That's a little bit more realistic. Do I think 15 years from now? Yeah. 15 years from now is what I would expect. But even 10 years, I think you could see some huge appreciation in Tesla stock. The markets are forward looking. So just when the markets get a path ahead, and once you actually start to see robotaxis becoming a thing, I think the profits will roll in pretty quickly. Now, it's going to take some time to get robotaxi into everywhere, essentially. All your urban, non-urban areas to really account for 30% of the world's population. That's going to take some time. But you don't need to see 30% of the world's population have access to robotaxis to get some really, big gains in Tesla stock. 30x, you could tweak the numbers a lot. And that's what I think is so cool about this whole thing. You could say that, well, maybe there's 20 taxi rides on average. Or maybe the ride of a taxi service or a robotaxi service is $100 10 years from now, which at this rate of inflation does not sound too unlikely. So there's a lot of different things you could put here. You can mess with the PE ratio and get different results here. But I think what we did in this video is pretty conservative. Now, obviously, a lot of you guys are going to like this. A lot of you guys are going to feel really good about this. After all, 10 years goes by pretty quick. And that could be a huge pool of profits for you in due time. Now, something else that I also would like to point out is a lot of people have shares of Tesla way cheaper than today's prices. The vast majority of investors bought the dip heavy in the hundreds. So maybe it didn't even cost you 30,000. Maybe in reality you could be looking at a 70x in the future if you bought shares half of 275, which would be roughly $135. So it's very exciting. And I think given these new numbers, if we do get, I guess not really new numbers, but putting it into a different kind of perspective, if we do get a pullback in Tesla stock, Tesla, to me, seems like the easiest money on Wall Street. In the short term, 2024, Tesla's going to crush the numbers. 27% delivery growth is going to be crushed. It's going to be around 50%. It might even be higher than that, given the Cybertruck. And I think Tesla would just need to ramp production more at that point to get to a place where they could produce more vehicles. I don't think there's going to be a lack of demand in 2024. Okay, that's my personal opinion. Let me know down below in the comment section what you think. But to the other point, Wall Street is expecting 29% EPS growth. So I think even short term, there is a lot of false narratives around Tesla, expecting Tesla's growth to rapidly decelerate. The only way Wall Street is correct in their estimates is if we go through a massive recession. That's it. Bottom line to it. If that does not happen, something equivalent to like the Great Financial Crisis, 10% unemployment, or even 8% to higher, 10%, 8 to 10%, then Tesla's going to beat the numbers next year. So short term, it looks very attractive. In the next couple of months, to be buying as much as possible heading into 2024. The next couple of weeks, not so much. Well, not specifically. I guess I shouldn't say that about Tesla specifically. I think the broader markets don't look attractive over the next couple of weeks. That could have a negative effect on Tesla stock. I think that's the best way to put it. But the next couple of months, heading into 2024, I think you want to be as net long as possible in Tesla. And especially 10, 15 years from now, you can't count on social services, call it that. You got to maybe count on Tesla or count on your portfolio. And I think Tesla is a very good bet to have over the next 10, 15, 20 plus years. So that's going to do it for this video. That's what I have for you. A little bit different than what we're typically doing here on this channel. Let me know if you like this, if you don't like this, down below in the comment section. I read all the comments. I try to respond to as many as possible. So let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you for watching. If you guys want to come trade with me, if you guys want to come get this analysis every day, every other day, whatever the case is, hedge out your portfolios, link down below in the description of this video to come join the trading community. Or if you just want to support the channel, you could do that. You could sign up to be a member, things of that nature. Really do appreciate it. Helps make these videos possible each and every single day. And really keeps the advertisers away. People try to get you to promote really sketchy stuff in some of these videos, and they offer to pay a lot, so it's really an incentive to not do that the more of you guys that do sign up to be a member, and I just appreciate it. So that is going to do it for this video. Enough rambling. You guys, hopefully you enjoyed your weekends. If not, well, we're starting the new trading week here tomorrow, so I will see you in the next one.